Hello all, it's week 6. This week we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. So I've talked before about the entrepreneurial culture at MSU, and one of the things really important to the ways in which MSU is approaching entrepreneurship and innovation is that we don't necessarily imagine that every student who's in the entrepreneurship and innovation minor, or every student who takes eShip 190 or takes this class is going to go out and launch a brand new business. That's just not realistic. But what we do expect and what we want to see is that students involved in entrepreneurship at MSU develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'll talk about what we mean by that, and I'll also talk about what it means to be T-shaped in this week's video. What we hope you all take from your entrepreneurial experiences here at MSU is an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's going to help you in any professional context you find yourself in. Bruce Bockenheimer is a clinical professor of management at Pace University and says that entrepreneurship is much broader than the creation of a new business venture, and it's more than the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources controlled. Entrepreneurship is at its core a mindset, a way of thinking and acting. It's about imagining new ways to solve problems and create value. Or as Ken Schmuzak here at MSU put it, entrepreneurship is an orientation to the world. The Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship defines the entrepreneurial mindset as the attitudes, skills, and behaviors needed to succeed academically, personally, and professionally. And these include taking initiative, being self-directed, engaging in calculated risk-taking, being flexible and adaptable, and engaging in problem-solving. The Encyclopedia of Entrepreneurship was published more than 35 years ago. It includes some of the characteristics of an entrepreneurial mindset, which you can see here. I'd argue that some of these entrepreneurial traits are still necessary, but others are anchored to early 1980s culture and perhaps aren't recognized as key or good traits today. For instance, I think we have more nuanced orientations toward what was called egotism and aggressiveness. These in themselves are not necessarily characteristics favored or valued in the workplace today. And empathy isn't on the list. And I think empathy has emerged as an absolutely crucial entrepreneurial orientation today. Empathy extends beyond getting along well with people or a sensitivity to others. Empathy means being keyed into another person's feelings, stances, and experiences. Empathy means being able to emotionally, psychologically, and intellectually understand what another person is going through from their frame of reference. You're going to read this week, week 6, about Generation Flux. One of the people highlighted in the overview article we're going to read is Dana Boyd, who is a principal researcher at Microsoft Research and teaches at NYU. She situates Flux as happening in media. She says there's a difference between the old broadcast world and today's networked world. Think back to the Did You Know videos we watched during week 2 and what they showed us about media changes. In the 1940s, for instance, there were essentially 3 networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC. Almost all television content came through these 3 networks. This was truly a broadcast context. The content of these 3 networks was broadly aired and consumed. Today, though, there are thousands of television channels, including web-only channels, and narrowcast typically tops broadcast. And by narrowcast, I mean really specific channels for a very particular audience. We've gone from 3 networks controlling and broadly casting content to very specialized networks like the Golf Channel. In the 1940s, when those 3 networks dominated our media scene, there was no internet. Today, however, you're not just consumers of digital media. We're producers of it. You all created and published websites for Creativity Quest 1. Elsewhere on the internet, on Facebook, which hosts more than 2.5 billion active users, 5 new profiles are created every second, and we've learned that a huge number, approximately 83 million of these new users are fake accounts. User writer and output on Facebook is incredible. More than 500,000 comments are posted every minute. People use Facebook for a variety of reasons, but Facebook's potential for humane engagement was evidenced, for instance, a few years ago in 2015, when more than 770,000 people donated more than $17 million in 1 week after the earthquake in Nepal. On WordPress, which is literally the backbone of the web and the most used content management platform, users generate more than 1.4 million posts per minute, More than 52 million comments are posted monthly, and more than 400 million people read more than 21 billion pages monthly. And what you're seeing here on the screen is just 10 seconds of WordPress activity. Video content. More video content is uploaded every 30 days, primarily through YouTube, but also through other sites, than all the networks combined have produced in the last 30 years. And not surprisingly, about 1/3 of all online activity is watching video. And we definitely should still consider books a medium too, even though digital interfaces have changed the ways we read. On fanfiction.com, just one of the thousands of fanfic sites online, users have produced more than 814,000 pieces of writing related to the Harry Potter characters, plots, and themes, and that's up more than 13,000 submissions since just 1 year ago. Dana Boyd is talking here about networked power. More and more of us have the ability today to not just consume, but create and distribute media across vast spaces and places. The author of the main Generation Flux article for this week, Robert Safian, says, the vast bulk of our institutions, however, educational, corporate, political, they're not built for flux. Few traditional career tactics train us for an era where the most important skill is the ability to acquire new skills. Many of you will go on to have jobs in the next 5 or 10 years that don't exist now. We can't deliver here at MSU the particular specific abilities to succeed in jobs we can't yet imagine, but what we can do is equip you with the skill sets that transcend specific jobs and situate you to continue to learn beyond college and across the transformations that you will see in your professional life. Another way to consider this is offered by Baratunde Thurston, who says, flexibility of skills leads to flexibility of options. To see what you can't see coming, you've got to embrace larger principles. And I would suggest that the entrepreneurial mindset is made up of some of these larger principles. And in this context of flux, you need to be T-shaped. And this is a concept that MSU has adopted over the past few years. When you walk across the stage at the Breslin and receive your MSU degree, we want you to have 5 key skill sets. First, you have to be able to think analytically and critically. You have to ask questions about the world around you. Imagine possibilities to address big problems. Second, we want you to recognize and respect cultural diversity. You will live, work, and play in a world that is connected in ways we've never before seen. To succeed professionally, you have to have an orientation to understand different ways in which people see the world. We want you to see yourself as citizens of local, national, and global communities. Being a citizen means actively participating in and shaping the world around you, maybe registering to vote here in East Lansing, but it also means participating in and actively contributing to a community on campus, like joining the Student Entrepreneurship Association. You must be an effective communicator across media. You have to be able to communicate to different audiences for different purposes, putting the most effective means to use. That might mean writing a memo, creating and delivering a slideshow, constructing a tutorial video. It might mean creating web content. As I've said before, you can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't communicate it, it's not going anywhere. Think back to the Tempo Run example from class. The short video that the Tempo Run team produced allowed them to secure the venture capital they needed to develop their app. They knew the best way to grab the attention of potential investors was through a short, compelling, well-made video. Finally, we want you to graduate as a person who engages in integrated reasoning. By this, we mean that we don't just want you to see and experience the world as a mechanical engineer or a supply chain management professional or an accountant or a philosopher. We want you to be able to think across your MSU experiences and draw from across the work you've done in the sciences, the humanities, and beyond. So these 5 core capabilities are the crossbar of the T. These are the broad skills you'll cultivate, sometimes also called transferable skills. We used to call them soft skills. You will also, when you walk across the stage at the Breslin, graduate with a degree. You'll leave with discipline-specific knowledge and a deep understanding of field-specific and professional ways of knowing, thinking, and problem solving. And I like to think of entrepreneurial thinking as the connection point between these broad skills and these deep knowledge. The ability to lead, to think innovatively and creatively, the ability to take calculated risks and fail forward. All of these are key skills that connect across the broad and deep skills you'll develop at MSU. And if you leave MSU a T-shaped person and professional, you're well situated to thrive in a world characterized by flux. A world that, going again back to Thurston, in which we might imagine that people are resistant to stasis, where they're used to speed. A world that slows down if there are fewer options. That's old thinking. That's frustrating. Stimulus is the new normal. Our first week 6 reading is by Seth Godin, a magical unicorn who has written some of the most compelling, sharp, and thoughtful books written in the last 20 or 30 years. You'll read some selections from his book titled Linchpin, Are You Indispensable? And in it, he makes some claims about the workplace of today and suggests that what you need to be is indispensable, and suggests a list of 7 abilities of the linchpin, which includes delivering unique creativity. Our second reading and our creativity case for the week comes from Fast Company, a trade magazine that is an incredible resource for entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. Fast Company was launched in 1995 and since then has published some of the most innovative, interesting articles about the changing shape of entrepreneurship. I would argue that one of the key entrepreneurial mindsets is learning to learn, continuing to be a learner, thinking of yourself as a lifelong learner, and subscribing to and reading trade magazines like Fast Company into and across your professional lives is one way to keep learning. You're going to read a piece that I think complements Seth Godin's ideas and that argues for Generation Flux. And this piece provides a great view of today's business climate with an emphasis on how digital networks have changed the economic and cultural landscape, which we've already talked about in class and which I just talked about in this video. For our creativity case, we're going to look at Fast Company's Most Creative People in Business 2019. Choose 3 or 4 profiles to read in detail. We have one creativity spark, the table of contents from a book called The Entrepreneurial Mind, where the author lists 100 essential beliefs, characteristics, and habits of elite entrepreneurs. I'd be interested to see which ones really resonate with you and which ones don't really map onto your idea of the entrepreneurial mindset. So head to our Class D2L site and into the week 6 materials. Plan some time this week to brainstorm and post a question and 2 responses to PackPack. If you haven't already, spend some time looking at and getting started on our Creativity Quest 2 work. It's due right before spring break, which is right around the corner.